You're home alone. You've checked, genuinely checked, and there is no one else in the house. And yet, halfway through some completely private moment, folding laundry, talking to yourself, dancing badly in the kitchen, something shifts. A small, prickling sense that you're being watched. You catch yourself sitting up a little straighter, or glancing toward the doorway, or suddenly self-conscious about a movement nobody could possibly have seen. You know, logically, that no one is there. That knowledge doesn't always make the feeling go away. It shows up in other private moments too. Walking through an empty parking garage at night. Sitting alone in a quiet office after everyone else has gone home. Making a small mistake with absolutely nobody around, and still wincing a little, as if it had been witnessed. Passing a dark window and feeling, for a second, that something on the other side could be looking back, even though there's nothing to actually see and no real reason to think anyone's there. In each case, the facts are the same, there is no observer. And in each case, some part of you is behaving as though there might be. This is the strange knot at the center of the whole thing. If feeling watched were simply your brain accurately detecting an actual observer, none of this would make sense, there's nobody there to detect. So the real question isn't, how did my brain sense someone watching me? It's something stranger and more interesting. How does the feeling of being watched get generated at all, even when there's genuinely no one around to be doing the watching? The first thing worth separating out clearly is that feeling watched and being watched are not the same event. One is a fact about the world, whether an observer physically exists and is paying attention to you. The other is a psychological state, a sense, generated inside your own mind, that you are currently visible, evaluated, or socially present to someone. These usually line up. When someone is actually looking at you, you often do feel it. But the two can also come apart, in both directions. Sometimes you're being watched and don't notice at all. And sometimes, this is the part that feels uncanny, the feeling shows up with no observer behind it whatsoever. So where does that feeling come from, if not from actually detecting a person? A large part of the answer sits inside something your mind is doing constantly, almost never consciously, social self-monitoring. Human cognition is unusually tuned to social information, to the possibility that your behavior might be seen, interpreted, or judged by someone else. That sensitivity doesn't switch off just because you happen to be alone. Your mind is capable of representing how this might look to someone as a kind of internal simulation, running in the background, independent of whether an actual someone is present to look. Part of what makes this possible is a capacity psychologists describe as perspective taking, the ability to imagine how a situation might look or feel from someone else's point of view. It's an enormously useful, everyday skill, one you use constantly and mostly unconsciously, predicting how a friend will react to news, imagining how a sentence will land before you say it, picturing how an outfit might come across before you leave the house. That same capacity for imagining another mind's viewpoint doesn't require an actual other mind to be present in order to run. It can activate on its own, quietly modeling, how would this look to someone, and that internal modeling can sit close enough to the experience of actually being observed that it produces a real, felt sense of being seen, even in an empty room. Certain conditions seem to make that internal simulation louder. Self-focused attention, becoming unusually aware of your own body, behavior, or appearance, can pull that same social monitoring machinery online, even with no one else in the room. Cues associated with an observing mind, even faint or ambiguous ones, appear to matter too, something that resembles a presence, a space that's normally occupied by other people, an environment that primes you to think in social terms, can be enough to nudge that sense of being seen into activation. None of this operates through one single, clean mechanism. Researchers studying this describe it as shaped by several overlapping factors at once: social context, self-awareness, and the mind's own model of what an observer's perspective might involve, rather than one simple switch that flips on whenever an I, real or imagined, enters the picture. This is part of why certain environmental details can nudge that feeling even stronger, without any actual person being involved at all. Cues associated with an observer, something as simple as an image resembling eyes, a space typically associated with other people being present, or an object shaped like a camera, have been linked to shifts in how strongly people report feeling watched. None of these cues involve an actual observer. They simply make the possibility of one feel slightly more present, which can be enough to shift that internal simulation into gear. It's worth being clear about what this is not. This isn't some sixth sense picking up a hidden gaze from across a room or through a wall. There's no established supernatural detection system quietly scanning your environment for unseen eyes. That's a very different claim from the one the evidence actually supports, and it's worth keeping the two apart. There is separate, real research on how people can sometimes notice a glance out of the corner of their eye, or catch subtle motion at the edge of their visual field, genuine perceptual detection of an actual person nearby. That's a different phenomenon entirely, rooted in ordinary vision, not in some hidden extra sense. What we're talking about here is something that can happen even when there is no person, no motion, and no visual cue at all, a feeling generated from the inside, by a mind that is exquisitely tuned to the possibility of being seen, whether or not anyone actually is. There's also a completely ordinary reason this sensation tends to surface in specific settings. A dark hallway, an unfamiliar space, a quiet office at an odd hour, these are exactly the kinds of environments that carry a background association with the possibility of another person being present, even without direct evidence. Your mind doesn't need certainty that someone is there. It only needs enough ambiguity for the social monitoring system to start running, what if, in the background, and once that simulation is running, it can produce a felt sense of presence that has nothing to do with whether anyone is actually present at all. None of this means the sensation is meaningless, or that you're imagining things in some dismissive sense. The feeling is real, in that it's a genuine psychological event happening inside a functioning mind doing exactly what social minds are built to do, track the possibility of evaluation, even hypothetically. It's also worth being clear that this everyday version of feeling watched is not the same thing as clinical paranoia or the intrusive, fixed conviction of being surveilled that can appear in certain mental health conditions. Most people experience some flavor of this sensation now and then, briefly, without it reflecting anything concerning about their mental state. The difference lies in persistence, intensity, and how fixed and resistant to evidence the belief becomes, not in the simple fact of noticing the sensation once in a while. So the next time you're alone, genuinely alone, and that prickling sense of being seen creeps in anyway, it isn't proof of a hidden observer, and it isn't your brain secretly detecting something your eyes missed. It's your own mind, doing what social minds do even with no audience present, quietly modeling what it might be like to be seen, just in case. The room stayed empty the whole time. The only thing that changed was happening entirely on the inside.